In the final years of the Second World War, as the map of the Third Reich collapsed and Allied bombers reduced entire cities to rubble, Nazi propaganda offered one last promise of salvation. The Wunderwaffen, the so-called wonder weapons. Rockets that crossed the sky at unimaginable speeds, jet aircraft capable of outrunning any pursuer, monstrous tanks designed to crush every defense, and even secret projects that bordered on science fiction. Some of these weapons reached the battlefield and killed thousands. Others remained trapped between prototypes, myths, and delusions. By the end of 1942, Hitler's expansionist project began a descent with no return. Stalingrad was not just a military defeat. It was a symbolic blow that shattered the myth of the invincible Reich. In the summer of 1943, Kursk confirmed what everyone already feared in silence. The Wehrmacht had lost the strategic initiative. North Africa collapsed. Italy fell apart as an ally, and British and American air power subjected German industry to relentless punishment. The war was no longer lightning fast. It had become a conflict of attrition, production, and volume, something the Reich could not match. Faced with this reality, a new doctrine emerged in Berlin's offices, driven by both military desperation and Goebbels' fanatical propaganda. If the Allies won by numbers, Germany would have to win by ingenuity.
From this now-defunct, top-secret, high-tech German complex, thousands of brilliant engineers, physicists, chemists, and their staff are generously funded from the Nazi treasury, provided with the most modern laboratories in Europe, and ordered to develop the deadliest armaments the world has never seen.
The concept of Wunderwaffe became a mantra. Every prototype, sketch, and technological rumor was presented with epic fanfare. Cannons capable of firing from the continent to England, fighters invisible to radar, missiles that could cross oceans. For the German population, exhausted, bombed, and hungry, these promises worked like an emotional narcotic. The press announced that a decisive new weapon was about to appear, keeping alive the illusion that German science would suddenly overturn the war. On the other side of the front, Allied intelligence services took careful note. They intercepted fragmented reports, aerial photographs, and spy testimonies. Their objective was clear: determine how much was propaganda and how much represented a real technological leap. Uncertainty bred anxiety. If even a fraction of these projects worked, they could alter the rhythm of the war. The Wunderwaffen had not yet appeared, but they were already shaping expectations on both sides.
The astonishing thing is, in the last year of the war, German productivity was greater than it was at any other stage in the war. So under incessant bombing, Speer in particular had organized industry and the slave labor associated with it to actually produce quite a lot of these wonder weapons, in fact the V2.
The first tangible strike of the Wonder Weapons program arrived in the summer of 1944. London, which had survived the Blitz, began to hear a strange metallic buzzing drifting over rooftops. They were the V1 flying bombs, pulse jet-powered weapons traveling at more than 600 kilometers per hour. The sound was so distinctive that civilians learned to read it like a sentence. When the buzzing stopped, the bomb began to fall. Its purpose was not to destroy factories or military bases. It was designed to terrorize the population, saturate defenses, and force the Allies to look skyward.
Launched from ski ramps or from beneath a flying aircraft, the V-1 bursts into action. A sophisticated gyro-compass feedback system guides it toward its target. The V-1 gets nicknamed the buzz bomb for the loud noise its jet engine creates.
The V-1s had unsettling advantages. They were cheap and simple to build, allowing for mass production. More than 30,000 were manufactured and launched from ramps in occupied France. But they also had weaknesses. They flew in straight lines at predictable altitudes. Allied fighters quickly developed tactics to intercept them, even tipping them with their wings to destabilize them without detonating the warhead. Anti-aircraft artillery adapted rapidly, and interception rates soared. Germany's response was escalation. The V-2 appeared, the world's first guided ballistic missile. Unlike the V-1, it could not be heard. It descended from the edge of the stratosphere at supersonic speed and detonated before anyone knew it was there.
They not only took a toll of more than 9,000 casualties, they also had a devastating psychological effect. For unlike the buzz bomb, the V-2 fell without warning. It had a speed of 3,300 miles per hour, and it could not be intercepted by fighter aircraft or brought down by anti-aircraft artillery.
The psychological impact was enormous. Its destructive power was undeniable, but its accuracy was poor. Its cost was astronomical. Its production depended on slave labor in the underground Mittelwerk complex, an industrial hell where tens of thousands of prisoners died. The V-weapons shook London and Antwerp, but they did not stop the Allied advance. They did not disrupt logistics. They did not change the strategic balance. They were weapons of terror, not of victory. While the V-1s and V-2s struck Allied cities, a more ambitious technological revolution was unfolding elsewhere in the Reich. Regaining dominance of the sky, land, and sea, with machines that seemed to belong to another decade. The symbol of this leap was the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. Fast, elegant, and lethal, it could outrun and outgun the best Allied fighters and tear through bomber formations with ease. On paper, it promised to restore Luftwaffe supremacy.
But the truth for Germany was that the war was being lost.
But it arrived too late. Its engines were fragile. Strategic materials were scarce. Pilots were increasingly inexperienced. To make matters worse, Hitler insisted on converting it into a fast bomber instead of allowing it to fulfill its original role as a fighter. At the same time, the Ho-229 emerged, an all-wing aircraft so futuristic that it would later inspire stealth designs decades afterward. Built from wood and composite materials, it likely had a reduced radar signature. But just as it reached prototype stage, American troops captured the workshops. On the ground, obsession with gigantism gave birth to the Panzer VIII Maus, a 188-ton monster, nearly invulnerable in theory, but incapable of crossing most European bridges. Even more excessive projects followed: the Landkreuzer P-1000 and P-1500, tanks the size of buildings. more useful as targets than as weapons. Beneath the Atlantic, the Reich's last real card was the Type 21 submarine. The first truly modern design, fast underwater, silent, capable of remaining submerged for weeks. Had it entered service in 1943, the Battle of the Atlantic might have changed dramatically. But in 1945, there was no time left. Now, if there was one weapon that could have decisively altered the war, it was the one never built, the atomic bomb.
Stuttgart, Germany, 1944. Nazis plot the ultimate weapon to win the war, an atomic bomb. A team of German scientists attempt to unlock the secret of nuclear fission to produce electric power.
Although the Third Reich possessed some of the world's brightest physicists, its uranium project was fragmented and slow. German scientists understood nuclear fission and the principle of chain reactions. Otto Hahn, Werner Heisenberg, and others knew that devastating energy could, in theory, be released. But turning theory into a weapon required resources, coordination, and political will, none of which Germany truly had. Heisenberg's team experimented with uranium cubes suspended in heavy water, attempting to build a reactor capable of sustaining a controlled reaction. Their calculations of critical mass were uncertain. Some historians argue Heisenberg miscalculated. Others believe he deliberately avoided advancing toward a bomb. Whether through error, caution, or intellectual sabotage, the German program lagged far behind the American one. Systematic sabotage compounded the delays. Heavy water plants in Norway, essential for reactor development, were attacked by resistance fighters and Allied bombers. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Manhattan Project became a colossal undertaking. Thousands of scientists, vast facilities, unprecedented industrial investment. When the Allies occupied Germany in 1945, the findings were disappointing. Subcritical reactors, incomplete experiments, confiscated uranium cubes, and reports showed that Nazi Germany was nowhere near an operational bomb. Among all the Wunderwaffen, nuclear weapons were the only ones that could truly have changed the war. But the Reich never came close.
How far did they come? This was the final question. And so they decided to put the 10 leading atomic scientists together in Farm Hall near Cambridge, and there in Farm Hall they were bugged, and the outcome was that obviously the Germans first had no atomic bomb, and second had also in the end not a clue about the function of the atomic bomb.
As Allied forces closed in and Berlin turned to rubble, projects circulating in certain offices no longer aimed to win the war. They seemed to deny reality itself. In this climate of paranoia and delusional hope, the most extravagant Wunderwaffen were born. Engineer Zipper Meyer developed a sonic cannon designed to kill infantry with shock waves. In practice, it only worked at absurdly short distances and required massive equipment. So-called vortex cannons attempted to fire spherical projectiles propelled by compressed air, mini-tornadoes. Tests were intriguing but useless against bomber formations. Other ideas went even further. rocket pioneer Hermann Oberth proposed a solar cannon in orbit, a gigantic mirror in space designed to concentrate sunlight and incinerate entire cities. The project never left paper, but it revealed how far the regime's mindset had drifted from military logic. In the post-war period, myths flourished around these projects. Stories of flying discs, the Honebu, supposedly using anti-gravity technology.
Is thought to be hidden in the secret hangars at Peenemünde, a Nazi UFO, nearly 50 feet in diameter, with 3 impulse jets on a rotor inside a circular fuselage. This UFO was never built.
The mysterious device known as Die Glock, the bell, surrounded by tales of radiation, disappearances, and space-time manipulation. Yet historical documentation paints a more sober picture. Many of these projects never progressed beyond preliminary sketches. Still, their symbolic power endures. In the Third Reich's twilight, fantasy, experimental science, and propaganda blended until the boundary between reality and impossibility vanished. With the full catalogue of Wunderwaffen on the table, the inevitable question arises. If Germany had deployed these weapons in sufficient numbers and on time, could it have changed the course of the war? The answer, despite the seductive allure of technological fantasy, is colder than Nazi propaganda suggested. The V-1s and V-2s caused terror and killed thousands, but they never crippled Allied industry. They did not destroy ports, they did not halt production, they did not stop advances from Normandy or Italy. Jets and submarines represented real qualitative leaps, but they depended on factors Germany no longer possessed in 1944: experienced pilots, fuel supplies, and an industrial base capable of mass production under constant bombing. Supertanks and giant cannons devoured resources that could have reinforced more practical conventional weapons. And the German atomic bomb, the true potential turning point, was years away. There is another uncomfortable truth. Many of these wonder weapons relied on underground factories sustained by slave labor. Conditions were so brutal that death rates exceeded any capacity for replacement. The Reich could design brilliant prototypes, but it destroyed the workforce needed to build them. In the end, the Wunderwaffen were not salvation. They were reflections of a regime unwilling to accept defeat. They combined genuine innovation with delusions born of fanaticism and desperation. Some technologies paved the way for the Cold War. Others vanished into incomplete blueprints and enduring myths. But the Second World War was not decided in secret laboratories or underground tunnels. It was won in factories, supply routes, and the endurance of millions. This brings us to the end. If you enjoyed this video, we'll see you in our next episode.